Hello, welcome back to our show. I, of course, am here with Gio because he never has anything else to do except this. It's not like he has a life or a wedding to plan or
Right.
a job that keeps him up at all hours of the night, but it's his dream job, so he's happy to do it.
Facts.
Demetrius has not missed a show since, and, well, Mills, I mean, he got snapped away for a little while. The blip of 5 episodes instead of 5 years. But this time we're going to go with Gio. So, Gio, walk us through your strategy.
My first big thing is my first two picks. Those are always my bread and butter. I don't care who I pick. Whoever I pick with those first two picks are going to be the team I build around every single year. Doesn't matter who it is. The second part of my team is sleeper picks. So those are like the middle round. Like those are where I win my games, where I win my playoffs, and how I eventually won my championship was how I got my middle round picks right. Always go for sleepers in the middle rounds. Doesn't matter who it is. And then the third option, it's kind of like draft strategy and also not. And I say that because I look at prospects. Mainly later in the draft, I'll look for prospects that might come out later in the season and just stash them. So what would I do with the first two picks? I mentioned that it would be the bread and butter for me. So I usually go with one pitcher and one hitter. It doesn't matter to me which one's picked which. It's all a matter of which one's available first. So if I have a pick, like Mill said, if I got the first overall pick and I have the last pick in the second round or whatever it is, then my usual strategy would be to go for a guy like Mike Trout or Mookie Betts or Ronald Acuna, because hitters don't really get most of the points. But if you get a premier hitter like Soto, Betts, Trout, Acuna, you're going to get that production regardless. Plus, they play mostly every single day of the week. Second pick usually goes for the ace guy. I mentioned before, and I stress a lot, that my sleeper picks in the middle rounds, it's very essential that you develop or build a team with your core as those middle-of-the-pack guys, because you can get superstars whenever you want. Honestly, there have come times and times again where I will trade, people I pick up in free agency for a star player later on in the season. In fact, I even traded some of my star players for picks and still made the finals at one point. So you don't really need too many stars. You need two people, which reminds me of going to my prospects. So I already know coming into spring training who some of these prospects are. You already know who's not going to be taken up or not going to be called up. Like, for example, Wander Franco is not going to be called up right now. But if you have an extra spot available on your bench and it's the end of the draft, it's worth to take a flyer on because at some point he's going to get called up. So when I see these players before I draft them, I'm going to look at their potential, their situation, what team they're playing for, the depth of that position, and then make my evaluation from there. Somebody you pick up late in your draft, like Nico Hoerner for the Cubs, currently dealing with a back injury, but he's going to be eligible at second, shortstop, and third. Even if I pick him late in my draft, he's not starting. That's three positions he's going to be eligible for. He's their top prospect. He's going to get innings regardless, and you've already covered your bench. And that's my fourth thing for drafting. My bench spots are always going to be players with multi-positional eligibility. Two more names I want to mention for deep sleepers that you might want to look at in your drafts. Garrett Crochet from the White Sox, who is basically another version of Aroldis Chapman. He might become the closer of the White Sox with Alex Colomé not there anymore, as well as somebody maybe like Brandon Rogers from the Rockies, who, they just traded Arenado, but he's a guy with ridiculous speed. He's going to get on base, and we know that with Arenado gone, there's an infield spot open. Now, at the pitching aspect of drafting, I look at two main things. That's going to be strikeouts and earned runs. Strikeouts because they get you 2 points per strikeout. And then ERA and earned runs is going to be, do they have a good defense behind them? Do they have a certain, like Mill said before, is it more about like their ability to go deep in games? Can they keep pitching throughout the year? Are they a workhorse or not? And when it comes to relievers, I barely draft a reliever. I'll take maybe one or two, but those relievers are going to be long inning relievers. I usually go for my closers when it comes to free agency as throughout the year continues, because there's no such thing anymore as a true set reliever. Even Kenley Jansen is not a full-on closer. The last true closer I could really trust, and I know I'm being biased, is Mo. One person I picked up last year that I didn't think was going to be good but turned out great was Trevor Rosenthal. So you can get these guys in free agency. Always focus on the core of your pitching staff and a couple of decent hitters that have multi-positional eligibility, and you can make whatever moves you want throughout the year. Of course, there's going to be injuries, but if you stick to those types of moves, at least for me, it's worked out. I've been in second place basically every single year. So I'm the best loser. And that's just how it is.
Yeah. So a couple of questions here. First of all, you lost to me 3 times, not twice.
It was Mark that I lost to once.
You lost to Mark
I
once.
beat him the second time.
Beat him the second time. So you got your revenge the very next year.
Mm.
You are 1-1 compared to 0-3. I just wanted to brag a little. Sorry. Number 2, look at me
For
too.
YouTube. Oh, I beat him in the finals. Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with your stance on relievers. I understand entirely because it's Mariano Rivera. Like, of course he was reliable. But Greg Holland was, for a good 5 years, the best closer in the league. Then he got hurt. Then he came back, and he somehow resumed being the best closer in the league. You also had the couple of years of Fernando Rodney when he was very viable. When he came in third in Cy Young, that was part of that insane run by him. And even now, last year everybody had a bad year, but last year Josh Hader's year was especially bad. But Liam Hendricks, Brad Hand, Kirby Yates, they're showing themselves to be a little bit reliable. What about them?
Like, you see these pitchers have like 1 or 2 year gaps of really solid dominance nowadays, at least. Yeah. Not like Holland, who was pretty good for a half a decade. But like a guy like Hendricks just came onto the scene. Josh Hader had 1 or 2 good years, and all of a sudden, his fastball became easy to hit because he doesn't have a second pitch. Same with Chapman. He used to had a really good fastball, and now hitters have adjusted. He's trying to throw sliders. His fastball isn't what it used to be, and he's giving up game-winning hits in the playoffs.
Yeah, but that splitter is disgusting. I don't know if you've seen the footage. It's disgusting.
Yeah, but when I say the most trustworthy reliever for me is Mo, I'm not saying it completely out of bias. It's partially biased.
No, I understand it. I agree. I can understand. Like, it's Mariano.
But it's not going to let me, I can't trust relievers a whole entire season when they always break down at some point, whether it be after a few years or not. You don't want to be the person that takes a closer high in the draft for a reliever standpoint and then watch them completely fall off the map. It happened to me a lot of times when I first started doing fantasy baseball way back then. I picked a closer like Jonathan Papelbon, who was really good for the Red Sox for a couple seasons, and then the 1 year you draft him,
he gives up a ninth inning lead to the Orioles, so the Rays can walk it off, baby.
Exactly that.
So the Rays can walk it off.
You see, it really depends for relievers on how many weapons they have on the mound.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of and you mentioned somebody like Alfredo Acevedo, which, by the way, great throwback name. I'm thinking of middle tier guys like a Seth Lugo or Chad Green, Luis Sessa.
Those are the people. Sorry to cut you off. Those are the people I always target when it comes to drafting relievers because they can get multi-innings. And Seth Lugo even took over as closer last year, which also proves the point they can still close. That's how Josh Hader became a closer. When he was a 2-inning, 3-inning reliever, and then Corey Newble got hurt. He took over, hasn't looked back since.
What I'm saying is you don't look at those relievers because they haven't developed or they struggle with a second or third pitch.
Yes.
Those relievers who have developed a second, third pitch are going to be the ones for you that you're looking at.
I'm going to tell you right now who he's actually going to look at. His last pick, his last pick, I guarantee you, would be Ryan Yarbrough.
I mean, that was a person I picked up like a couple of years ago.
It would be his last pick, except it's going to be my last pick, and I picked before him. So.
Right, and again, there's a guy who eats innings out of the bullpen, can start, and
gets those starts without actually starting, which is huge because ESPN counts the S's as starts, not those bulk guys who go after an opener.
That's why amazing. I love Tampa relievers because
look at Demetrius. Look at Demetrius. He's thinking about it. Look at his face. He was like, ooh.
Another person that I had on my team before he went down was having a really good year was Yanni Chirinos, who's another, multi-inning reliever that gets you innings. You don't count for a start, and it's at least 7 to 8 points if you don't get a decision.
All right. Well, I guess those were the questions, and it was more of a conversation than anything. Yeah, you'll notice that there's not much to ask about or challenge me and Gio about for a reason.
Always on the same wavelength.
Well, I'm on a better wavelength because I've beaten. I'm not challenging it because I understand the logic of it. So I can't challenge what I also agree with.
I see. Right, because you're all about balance too.
Yeah, no, balance is key also.
Whereas you guys were looking more at stacking up in certain positions, I'm looking at playing the field with so many different options.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm stacking up.
Gio's not stacking.
Wait, I actually do have a challenge question, Gio.
Oh, I'm listening. I want to hear this.
Why only 2 players are you building your team around? What happens if those 2 players get hurt?
It's not per se to specifically literally build around them. It's when I pick the first 2 players, I'm thinking these guys are going to be where most of my production is. So if that happens where one person does go down, it's happened before because Mike Trout's gotten hurt plenty of times at some points where those multi-positional guys come in so I can fill in the role with them at least for whatever stretch of time it is. And if it is hypothetically a 60-day IL stint, then I work my magic on the waiver wire. I trust myself that much with free agents where I can, plug in holes for a certain amount of time and be okay.
What happens when you're in a league? What happens when you're in a league if you have a transaction cap?
Oh God, transaction caps are stupid.
Yeah, I would never do that.
So bad.
But to answer the question, if it's a 10-person cap and let's say Fernando Tatis is out for 3 months, I would go after either that if I had a person on the bench that was trustworthy enough to start for the time being, or if I needed somebody to start right away, I would look for the hottest hitter. Just keep it that simple because you don't want to get too, overthink it too much.
Well, that will do it for this show. Next show, we finally get to hear Demetrius's talks about rankings. I'm so excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I wonder if Jackie Bradley Jr. will be top. Tune in next time to see.
Sorry, I had a cough.
You had a cough? Are you sure there's something in your throat? You need me to get a bat and just wail on your back and try to get it up a little bit?
I don't know.
Yes.
Wait a second. Petition for two titles for the episode. The second one, balanced as all things should be, and then that one, and then episode 3 is should I hit it with a bat to get it up?
On board with the titles. It's beautiful.
Should I hit it with a bat to get it up?
You'll love to see it.
I'm deceased.
Oh God. Oh,
that's great.
That's great. Oh man, I think the show title is going to be "Petition for Episode Names."
After Demetrius's draft strategy, the episode just to be Jackie Bradley Jr. ? Exclamation point! Exclamation point!
JBJ number 1. Huh?
That was actually going to be it. It was going to be. It wasn't there, except for no question marks exclamation. It was going to be Jackie Bradley Jr. is the title. That's it.
Jackie Bradley Jr. Hey man.
Imagine one day he's on Twitter or YouTube. Hey, this show's about me. I wonder what they're talking about.
Wait, they're ripping me apart.
That's not very nice.
We're not ripping apart Jackie Bradley Jr. We're ripping him apart as the number 1 overall pick.
Okay, all right, fair.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
With him in Milwaukee, you never know now. You never know. That outfield is pretty stacked.
Stop it.
I won't pick him first.
Stop it.
We're just going to stop. We'll see you next week.